Hi, Celestia here again to continue my story. Being a biased parent doesn't always bode well for you, no matter what. I heard the morning birds chirping through my bedroom window. It was a crisp morning and I was finally able to sleep in peace. I looked to the foot of my bed and remembered the antics my sister Debbie used to pull on me. How angry I'd feel in stressful moments like those, and how angry my mother would get trying to protect Debbie. It wasn't ever fair in that house, always being put under my mother's thumb because of her separation with Dad. Add to that the similarities I had with Dad, and it ended up stewing into a truly awful home life. I, however, put all that behind me now as my future lay before me, starkly different. I sat in the living room as Dad made pancakes. He smiled warmly at me and said, "Morning, dear." "Morning, Dad," I said with a smile back, before opening my laptop and getting to work. Because the business venture went so well, selling eyewear to dogs because of their sensitive eyes, I was able to afford a new home for me and Dad. We lived comfortably, and Dad was able to pursue his work in relative peace, while I sustained my schooling, as well as taking on the responsibilities of work. Dad always told me, "It's best not to let work get over your head, dear. You're still a student, so try not to overwhelm yourself." I simply smiled and nodded, knowing what he meant and his concern for my well-being. Having grown up mostly with my mother, it was a fresh experience to have a parent that actually cared for me and didn't try to put me under some other favored child of hers. All the times Debbie would get spoiled, while I had to try to make ends meet, always left a thorn in my side. But I let it go as I focused on my future. I was sitting on the kitchen counter, typing away at my laptop and preparing a new possible design for an eyewear line, when I noticed my phone begin to ring. I set aside my empty plate of food, which I ate while working, and looked at it. Confused as to who would be calling me so randomly, a voice I'd never heard before answered the phone call, and I asked, "Who is this?" I was confused. This was Dad's number, but it wasn't him who answered. "Hi, this is Celestia. You have my dad's phone. Why are you calling?" Concern filled his tone as he began to speak. "Your dad got into a vicious accident. We rushed to the scene and found him dialing your number. Please meet us at the hospital. He's in dire condition." My heart raced out of my chest as I heard the news, blood rushing to my ears as I acted swiftly. Time flew by in a blur as I rushed to the hospital, running through pristine white hallways and past several people. I headed for the operating room assigned to Dad. Apparently, he was still unconscious, being taken care of. "Kindly take a seat, ma'am," a nice nurse said, gesturing to a row of seats outside the room. And I obliged, hearing my own heart thump against my chest. "I hope Dad's okay," I said to myself. Then I heard a noise down the hall that made my instincts flare up. I looked down the hallway and saw my mother and Debbie talking to some nurses. It was clear why they were here, because as soon as they made eye contact with me, they walked towards me. "So your father's still unconscious," she said, her voice laden with worry. "I hope Dad's okay," Debbie continued, both of them oozing this sense of concern. But I wasn't buying it. It was clear as day why they were here, to gain my sympathy. "Very funny, but no, Dad doesn't want to see either of you," I snarled at them, not in the mood to entertain their greed. "Oh, Celestia, we're family. Of course we worry about your father," Mother chided, sitting next to me as Debbie sat beside her. "We're simply concerned about your father, so we rushed here as soon as we heard the news." "And also we're concerned about you," Debbie said, though her smile seemed quite a bit faker than Mom's. I guess Debbie didn't gain much in terms of her skills in lying. "Seriously, beat it," I said, my hands balling into fists. But before they could respond, a doctor came out of the operating room, covered in surgical attire. All three of us stood up as the doctor approached, removing his mask. "I'm guessing you are the family? Fortunately, your father will survive," the doctor said, nodding with a smile of relief. I felt the mass in my throat loosen up. Dad was okay. I can breathe again. But the doctor wasn't done talking. I'm afraid the injury sustained cannot be covered by his insurance, so we will need additional payment to cover the work. I can do it, I said, knowing I had money for my burgeoning job. I'm afraid I can't let you do that. You aren't at the age where you can take that responsibility. I'll have to ask your mother. I felt shock fill my body. I'd be happy to, sir, she smiled, though I saw deviousness in her eyes. No, why can't I do it? I asked with growing panic. Just hospital protocol, ma'am. Excuse me. And the doctor left, leaving me with a lot to think about. Mother, however, wasted no time. I'm afraid I don't have enough money to cover the fees myself, though, Celestia, I'll tell you what. Why not funnel some money to me? Then I can pay for your dad's hospital fees. She smiled as warm as she could, though her stiffness gave away how fake she was being. I laughed without a word, feeling my emotions coil and roll like a tornado. I needed air. I needed to calm down. I know if I gave Mother money to save Dad, I'd never hear the end of this. She'd lord that over me forever and hold it over me, constantly siphoning money from myself to her. I didn't want that. But Dad needed the money, so I was torn. In the end, I took a deep breath and went back inside, knowing I could take some concessions as long as Dad gets what he needs. As I walked back in, I heard Debbie and Mother talking, and it made my fists ball up once more. Why do I have to act like this? I hate her, Debbie said with annoyance in her voice. Just till she gives us the money, sweetie. Then we can dump that bum and her father and use the money to live comfortably on our own, Mother said, her tone clearly devious. So that was their plan. Even when Dad was sick, would I be willing to give in to my mother's demands? I was torn. I wouldn't decide. I couldn't. I knew there was no real good answer here. Only drifting gray areas and having to give something to save something else. Before I could decide, I saw Zoe walking to the room and asking Mother, not knowing who she was, talking to Dad's ex-wife. Where's Celestia? I heard her dad got into an accident, Zoe asked, clearly confused. And who are you? Mother said, standing up, not answering Zoe's question. Zoe started, but it was completely cut off by Mom. Oh, so you're the reason he left. What a waste, Mother said, clearly acting superior, as if she had already won. Zoe, however, remained silent and asked, Where is Celestia? Mother grew into a fit. You harlot! You're the reason I'm not stinking rich right now! And she threw herself at Zoe. Oh, I couldn't stand it. And so I intervened, diving into the fight and separating them before Mother and Zoe tore at each other. Enough, Mother! I've had it! Get out! I'll pay for it myself somehow! I yelled, rage filling my very bones. But Celestia, who will pay for... Mother tried to say, but I cut her off. Out! Before the guards come here! I saw her expression change from shock to disbelief to a grim disdain. She turned back and left, with Debbie in tow. Thank you, Zoe said, fixing herself. Anytime, it's just... I don't know how to cover Dad's bills. I'm not considered an adult yet, I replied, simply as if resigning to the difficulty, frustrated. Oh, I can do it, Zoe said, sitting beside me. You're my business partner. If it helps, I'd be happy to stand in for you and pay for your dad's bills. Are you sure? This could be tricky, I admitted. Well, you have a knack for turning the difficult problem easy. I laughed and nodded. Before long, Dad was in his hospital room now, with bills paid. We laughed as Zoe sat with us, and Dad thanking her for helping with the bills. She wasn't my real mother, but at least she cared. And sometimes that's the hardest part to come by.